Welcome back to CPA Diversity. Chris Johnson here, and glad to have you back. Today we have a good interview with Miss Elizabeth Barentzen from the CAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and she serves as the VP of Operations and Talent Initiatives at the CAQ, and she spent some time with us talking about what she does at the CAQ, what the CAQ is doing to attract more minorities to the professional audit. We talked about what some of the big companies in the industry, in the accounting industry, are doing to attract more minorities. There's a lot of good tidbits in the video, so I know you're gonna love watching it. I know you're gonna love watching it, so I want you to watch it to the end. I want you to make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment as always. Make sure that you comment and let us know what you learned, what you like, and we'll definitely do our best to continue to provide good content so that you can learn more about the profession of accounting and we can bridge this gap to get more minorities and African Americans into the profession of accounting. And I have to add that this one was a little bit of a tricky one. I had my camera recording on this video and I totally messed it up, lost the file. So when you look at it, the images of me are not going to be as clear as you see right here. I really was just kicking myself about this one, but you can see Ms. Barentzen. The quality of her video is really good. So, and the content is still there. So, yeah, so there it is. I'm still kicking myself about that one. You know, this stuff about recording and doing this channel is still new, so I'm going to make mistakes, but I promise I'm going to get better. Watch it, subscribe, like. Interview with Ms. Elizabeth Barentzen from the CAQ coming right at you. Christopher Johnson, CPA and CISA, and welcome to another CPA Diversity interview. Today we have a special guest from the Center of Audit Quality, the CAQ, Ms. Elizabeth Barentzen. Am I saying that correctly?
You got it right.
Okay, I didn't want to botch your name. Okay, yep. Ms. Elizabeth Barentzen, she is the VP of Operations and Talent Initiatives at the Center for Audit Quality. Did I get that right?
You got that right as well.
Oh, all right, awesome. And she's gonna be speaking with us today about her role at the CAQ, and we're gonna ask her some questions about the accounting profession, CPA profession, but more specifically, the profession of being an auditor, which is what the CAQ is all about. And we're glad to have her here with us to share a moment of her time. So Ms. Barentzen, welcome.
Thank you. And you can call me Liz.
Okay, I always have to wait for somebody to say that. Okay, very formal. Yeah. Liz, welcome to CPA Diversity. Thanks for being here. And we're really excited to have this discussion. Awesome. So I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot going on. I actually just got off an audit call too. So we're busy. It's Friday, but we're ready to like kick loose, I'm sure. Yeah. But I wanted to get you on because I was watching a video about Road Trip Nation and the CAQ and what you all are doing to bring more awareness to the profession of auditing. And I thought, you know what, this would be great to have her come on as somebody who's a VP of the CAQ, kind of just give my viewers some insight on to the role that you play, what the CAQ thinks about minorities in the profession of accounting and CPA, and some of the different initiatives that you all have out there to help attract more people to audit, and just kind of share some of your experiences. So I'd like to just kind of start with you kind of giving me a background about yourself. How did you end up working at the CAQ? I believe your background is more from law versus a CPA, correct?
Sure. Yeah, I started my professional life as a lawyer and very quickly decided that was not a role for me, or not where I wanted to see my career. I worked in employment law and really at a certain point felt like I wanted to be on the client side. So I went to work for an HR consulting firm, and that's where my real passion for learning and development and culture within organizations developed. Like, you know, when you have inclusive cultures where people feel that they can bring their authentic self to work every day, performance is going to increase. And I've seen it time and time again, and I've seen it where it hasn't worked very well. And that is really a passion, my own personal passion. So I worked for the government. I headed up a learning and development department for a while, and then at a certain point decided I wanted to move back to the private sector. So I went to work for a solar finance and development company, and was a chief culture officer there. And then this opportunity at the Center for Audit Quality presented itself. And what attracted me to the CAQ was this challenge with diversity within the profession. And in my own, in this role, potentially seeing the opportunity to work on a challenge that could really impact the profession in a positive way. There's a lot of work to be done. And I think that that battle and that uphill road is very attractive to me, because I do think this is a fantastic profession that is misunderstood by people that are not necessarily in the profession. Yeah. And I think there's a ton of opportunity out there. And so whatever I can do to help is really exciting to me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Have you had the opportunity and experience in your career to actually participate in audits at all? Or are you more like an administrative type of role? Like, can you give me some background about that?
So I have worked for my previous role at the solar company I worked for, and my current role, it's a little bit less so, but previously it's kind of like more of a blended COO role. And so we were audited, right? And that's been my experience, is kind of working on the client end with auditors and seeing them all hold up in a conference room and feeling that nervous energy around what are they going to come out with and what's going to stem from this. And so on the client side, not on the audit side.
Got it. But I'm sure that's the even worse side, right? You're the one that's got the fire to yourself, and you're like getting all the questions and you don't know what we're gonna ask. My whole experience, I've been on the other side. I've been the auditor, so I totally can understand that perspective as well. Kind of making people feel nervous, because we have that stigma of like, oh my gosh, they're gonna roll in with their cars and their jackets and they're gonna just ask us all these hard questions, and and then you see like the horror stories on some of the movies where they like turn up the cold air on them so they can get out of there really quickly. But we're good people, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for young professionals coming into the world of accounting and trying to identify which way they want to go. And one of those avenues is audit. And having talked to some CPAs previously, we all have to take the audit section of the CPA exam in order to, successfully pass and become CPAs. So it gives you some exposure to what auditors do and some of the, principles and theories that you need to know going into audit. I just so happened to go into that path, and that was the path for me. So I think that it's good to have these discussions about, what the CAQ is doing, what people like you are doing to bring more awareness to the profession and give people who don't understand what auditors do and more of an idea of, what this career brings, right? So I got a question. From your perspective and in your role, what is the CAQ's kind of thought process about bringing more minorities specifically into the audit profession? I know you guys have like Discover Audit, right, which is like an initiative that you all have created in order to bring more awareness. And I've gone to the website and browsed around there. There's a lot of good content on there. But can you just kind of give me an understanding of how the CAQ feels about that topic specifically?
Yeah, specifically, I mean, this is the biggest thing we're working on within our talent initiatives. And we're working on it in a few ways. Number one is on the recruitment side and expanding the pipeline. And number two is within the firms, currently working with the chief diversity officers from our governing board firms on retention, experience, and advancement of specifically Black professionals within the profession. Because really, there's a trends report that the AICPA puts out every year. And if you look at those numbers, unfortunately, there has not been a lot of movement. There has been with other minorities perhaps, but not specifically with Blacks and African Americans. And that's really where we see the greatest need, and at least internally within the firms where we're focused. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, on our pipeline efforts of expanding the pipeline. I think one of the things that I believe about audit, where there is so much opportunity. I've heard this before over and over again, that audit is really the study of business, right? If you study audit, you understand the internal workings of a business and you can become an entrepreneur. And in my mind, what a great opportunity for our underrepresented and underserved communities to learn business and to give them that platform. And so that is where my passion is coming from, my drive is coming from, and opening this up to as many underrepresented, underserved communities as we can.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Awesome. I know, I'm glad you said that. You know, me being an African American, I kind of resonate with that the most, right? And it's part of the reason why I created this company, this organization, and this channel, is to really not only just talk about African Americans, because, you know, that's really what I connect with the most, but I know that from a profession, you know, it's predominantly, you know, white profession, and there is a lot of underrepresented cultures across the board. I think, like you said, African Americans tend to be the one that we don't see the most progression with. So I think that it's important for us to, you know, have these type of, you know, understand what these organizations that are out there in the economy who really have some say so in the industry are doing. And part of the reason I wanted you to participate was to show my viewers how much demand there is for more African Americans specifically, and other underrepresented cultures, for us to be in this profession. Yeah. And what I found is that, you know, the way I'm going to put a video out on how I got into audit, but it was so refreshing for me, because it was like a whole nother world. And it's partly, I think, because I don't have a lot of people in my family, in my community, who are auditors or accountants. So once I did get to the point where I started to kind of see how an auditor's lifestyle was, it was like, wow, I feel like we are not doing enough to show how much of a good profession it is to be an auditor. You know, you get to meet people, you get to understand business, just like you were talking about. And then there's a lot of fun stories, which is something that I wanted to ask you, if you wanted to share just some of the benefit, some of the fun stuff, like some of the things that you really appreciate about working with auditors, with CPAs in audit. What do you think is like the best experiences you get from working with the CAQ, or just kind of overall in your career with audit?
Yeah, well, I think so. You know, it's evolving right now. This is what is really exciting to me about the profession, is just the evolution that is currently happening. So if you think about it, in the past, all this rote work that was done, that's being, you know, that is now, there's with technological advances that are now kind of doing some of that more mundane, boring work. And now the skill set that auditors really need, they need to be able to communicate, they need self-awareness, because they need to be able to deal with their clients, you know, directly. I think it's really exciting for young auditors have exposure to you know, CFOs and CEOs and companies that they're working with. So it's great exposure. I think there's the ability to travel. You go to your clients. One of the most interesting things to me, and I really, you know, again, with this brand awareness, it is so critical. And you touched on something that is really, that we see a lot, which is like, if you had an auditor in your family, or, you know, your dad or your uncle or mom or whoever was an auditor, perhaps you know about it, and it might direct you into the profession because you know about it, right?
Right.
Not something that ever came up for me personally. Like, I didn't realize that this was a job. And what's really interesting is, you know, growing up, I always loved fashion, right? Like, I always had this idea, someday I'd want to be a fashion designer or whatever. And then, you know, I went to college and that kind of went out the door. But as an auditor, I very well could have been auditing apparel companies, right? And gotten, like, met that desire or that passion in a way in understanding their business while utilizing my talent in, you know, in communication skills or math or whatever.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah. So
ultimately, you got the opportunity to merge your profession with part of your aspirations and your goals.
Yeah.
it sounds
So like if, if you have an interest in, sports or medicine or whatever those things are, you can bring this profession to those other interests and specialize. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was in college, they would always say, "You go into accounting, you can do whatever you want, right? You understand business, and you can do anything." And it's like, well, and then they would say, as a CPA, you can go and work anywhere. And it's like, okay, well, what does that really mean? I mean, I'm in school, I'm going to graduate. I know I want to do this one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems like the demand for jobs is telling me that I need to go get a job. So I can't go right into what I might want to do, what I might have aspired to do. And now working and being on the other end of it, it's like, wow, I've had the opportunity to audit a lot of companies that I never thought that I would have had any exposure to.
Right.
So
And you
I
learn
agree
so
with what
much.
you're saying.
There's so much learning, I think, in that, right? Seeing the inner workings of different companies and how different companies do things, that is experience then that can take you, if you decide at a certain point you want to start your own company, you have such a leg up on that, right?
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
you have learned how to become an entrepreneur and how to start your own company. The other thing that's really important, and getting back to why I really appreciate you're doing what you're doing and bringing more awareness about this, it
Mhm.
offers a level of stability that many careers don't, right? Companies are always going to need to be audited. And at least within the firms that are our governing board members, there's clear career progression that happens within the firms,
Mhm.
and you have stability, but you're marrying that with different experiences, different exposures. So it can still be a very interesting career while maintaining stability. And that's really important, especially right now.
Yeah, I agree, because I think one of the things when we talk about diversity and when we talk about African Americans is that the income disparity that we often hear about, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying stability is something that you get, and that's one of the reasons I love this career, is because for one, I went and got my CPA out the way, my exam out the way early, and it opened a lot of doors. I started my career with Ernst & Young, and ever since then, I have not had really any periods where I couldn't find somewhere to work. It's always the value that comes with being a CPA, and just in working in the accounting and audit space, there's always opportunities out there for work.
Yeah.
Because like you said, every company needs to be audited because they all have financial statements. A lot of them need to have somebody certified on the validity of the financial statements, and that's where auditors come into place. And not only that, we drive a lot of value because we're kind of, if you work internal audit, you're there to help internally make processes better, or internally, help to maintain the books and records by doing, your by checking up, right? You have your bookkeepers who actually maintain the books, but you need somebody to basically go in and test them, right? Because that all makes everything better.
Yeah.
So you're right, and I think that it's important because when students specifically are coming out of school, they don't know quite all the answers yet, but they do know that they want to be able to earn some money. They want to be able to earn a nice, healthy income. They want to be able to be someplace where they feel valued. And then, what happened with me was life happened very quickly, right? I became a father. I became a husband. You have all these responsibilities. And
Yeah.
what you don't want to be is in a position where you can't, you feel like, oh, I'm working from job to job, or I don't have a career that's really fulfilling, because, it'll be hard to be happy. And I think that, like you said, it's really good because there's a lot of stability in audit. There's a lot of places you can go and audit. I know AICPA has this way to AICPA. You all have Discover Audit. There's a lot of content on there about what type of audit you want to be, what you can do in audit, what you need to be an auditor, a lot of those things. So I definitely encourage the viewers to go there and check out the CAQ's Discover Audit website and all the stuff that they have there. One thing you mentioned was the board, the governing board for the CAQ. So it's a lot of the managing partners of like the big four, correct?
It's the CEOs of our governing board firms. So it is, yes, it's a big four, and also BDO, Crow, RSM, and Grant Thornton. So there are our 8 governing board firms. And
so those are like heavy hitters. Those are like heavy hitter players in the accounting and audit space that are governing the CAQ. Do they ever have discussions about what they're doing to bring in more minorities into the profession and make it more attractive?
This is a top of line issue, and it's not like it since June. This has been an issue. This has been, at least since I've been at the CAQ, this is on the agenda. This is something that the CEOs talk about quite often at our governing board meetings. Actually, every governing board meeting it comes up in some context, and because it is a real our main mission for our talent objectives at the CAQ, working on this issue and working on it collectively. So I think that's where the CAQ is really interesting organization. And what I was alluding to before is the ability for impacts. You know, firms all are doing so much. They spend millions and millions of dollars on initiatives that are going to increase their pipeline for diverse talent, as well as making sure that they're retaining and providing mentorship and providing opportunity and doing what they can to provide advancement. They're doing that at the individual level. The CAQ, we're trying to look at this from a profession perspective. Right. And so one of the, Road Trip Nation was a great example of an initiative that speaks to the entire profession. The documentary, Making a Balance, which you can also find the link on discoveraudit.org, is really interesting because it profiles, and that just for your viewers' background, right? We've partnered with Road Trip Nation. We sent 3 young recent graduates on a road trip from Austin, Texas to Boston, Massachusetts. They'd never met each other before. But they all knew that they were going into the audit field, and along the way, they researched who they wanted to interview and set up interviews with different career professionals. And so the choices they made, some were, members of the big 4, right, that currently worked, but others were people that maybe had been in the profession and then got out and did something else. So one is now a leadership coach. One started his own baking business in New Orleans. They interviewed Kathy Engelbert, who's now heading up the WNBA, who used to be CEO of Deloitte. Very cool. Just learning about all the different paths where a career can take you. So it's a really great documentary, and that would be my number one to do for your listeners out there, is to just watch that documentary and explore that website some more.
Yeah. And, it was so interesting to me because I think part of what I like to do with this platform is to interview more people, get more involvement with the organizations on a much bigger scale. We're still building it out. But when I saw Discover Audit, to me, you have to really be frequenting either LinkedIn or the CAQ website to know that these things are there. And when I saw on LinkedIn, the video about Discover Audit partnering with CAQ and sending these students to go talk to professions in audit. I thought, wow, this is great. Like, this is what we need to see more of, because then students can really get a hands-on interaction with people who have been there, done it, and can kind of guide them and also tell them a lot of the benefits that come with choosing this career path. And so I do encourage everybody to go check that out. I've only seen some of it, so I have it on my list to go and watch the whole thing. And I heard it's on PBS, or is it on public television as well?
Yeah, it started airing June 5th, and it's still airing across the country. And again, like on our website, it'll take you to Road Trip Nation, our partner's website, and you type in your zip code and it'll show when it's airing. But you can just watch it on the website. You don't have to.
Just it's funny because I had an interview with a CPA. She's based in, I believe, I'm trying to remember. I think she's in Miami, which is where I'm from. So, but we were talking, and I asked her. I said, why do you think that, what do you think is something we can do more of? And she said, lawyers tend to have all these TV shows, like, all these
Right.
crime dramas. And so you have like Scrubs and what do you call the other popular ones that show the healthcare and doctors,
Yeah,
but
ER, all, yeah.
we don't have a show for accountants. And I think that this is good because this is like the first one,
Yeah. You nailed that right there, because that is really how, if I think about like kind of a broad way of how we're thinking about the CAQ's work in this space, it's really about bringing brand awareness. And in a perfect world, where we get to is that when you're a kid and you're thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? It's top of mind. It's not just doctor, lawyer, fireman, police officer, whatever. It's auditor is in there too, right? Like that's
yeah.
It on the continuum, that's where we'd like to get to eventually.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get a really riveting kind of series out of it. I know they have the movie Accountant. That's the one that keeps coming up. Yeah. They did the movie Accountant. I didn't get to see that one yet, though.
I saw it many years ago before I started the CAQ. I think I need to watch it again with Ben Affleck, because I'm wondering if my perspective on the movie would change. So we'll see.
For sure. So then, as someone who kind of works with talent and hiring, what do you think are some of the things that a student or just a young professional should work on to make themselves more attractive to the audit profession, and maybe some of those big four, or the big, not big four, but big audit firms, accounting firms that you all work with at the CAQ?
Great question. So the opportunities are there. This is what I will say. Like, there is a real, you started saying this, that that the opportunities are there, that it is, that there is a real desire and so much effort being put into expanding the pipeline with diverse talent. And so I think really important is networking, and kind of like how we found each other, right? Like being brave, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there and researching different individuals within firms perhaps, and reaching out and trying to network and understand the experience that people are having, and thinking through about where you want to get to. So there's a lot of self-work that needs to be done in terms of, understanding your own value and your own talent, and then being able to communicate that and network is critical. I think LinkedIn is the best networking tool there is. And so anybody I've ever talked to that's looking for a job, the advice I get is you need to get to over 500 contacts, because once you have over 500 contacts, there's some sort of algorithm in the program that then opens up your networking and what comes to you in your feed. And so making sure that you get to that magic number. And so that would be my number one tip.
Awesome. So number one tip is make sure that you understand that there's a lot of self-work that goes into it, but network, ask questions, learn about the profession so you can understand where you want to fit and what qualities that you bring to the table can be beneficial to an organization or a group that would help you to at least get your career started and off the ground. Very good information. I found that helped with me as well.
Yeah. And just have confidence in knowing that, the opportunities are there. And, it is, I'm always happy to network with people myself and share information about this profession and help out. So really, I deal with this every day, and I know that there's a lot of information out there. The AICPA website also has a link to different scholarship opportunities. So I think that's another good tidbit that I would share, that there are, and I can also share that a lot of those scholarship opportunities, there's not a lot of competition for them, because it's this brand awareness thing that we're working on. So
Okay.
I highly recommend going there as well.
Good, good. So yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll put a link to that in this video. That way people can know where to find it. And I've got some relationships out there that I'm working on to get the AICPA to participate in this as well. So
Yeah.
that hopefully we can, and then we can also have a discussion with them and some of the things that they're doing, because I know that there's a lot of opportunity. Like you're saying, there's a lot of organizations that are thinking about this topic and wanting to identify the way we can bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been on for a while. We've been talking for a while. And I know you've got a busy day. So I'm just going to ask you one more question. Have you had the opportunity to travel any place that you've always wanted to go as a part of the profession? And could you explain kind of what that experience was like?
So with the CAQ, my favorite city in this country is probably San Francisco. I love San Francisco. And last year I had the opportunity to go to San Francisco for AAA conference, and where we previewed our Road Trip Nation documentary.
Wow.
Obviously we were supposed to go on the road which would have been really exciting, kind of do this road show showcasing Road Trip Nation and with different conferences and events throughout the spring and summer. And with COVID, that was obviously canceled, and we're now doing much of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So one of the places I did not get to go to, which I really would have loved to, is Nashville. I've never been to Nashville, and it's just, someday I just have to get there. But yeah.
That's good. I've heard so many good things about San Francisco. I have not had the opportunity to go. I've been to San Diego, so that's like the only California city that I've been to. But I've had colleagues that have gone to San Fran and loved it. I think it's interesting that the description for Road Trip Nation says we send 3 students from Austin to Boston to go talk to people. And it's like, oh, when I was reading that, I was like, you know what? I've audited in Austin and in Boston, you know? So it's true, you know, you get to travel all places. And I love asking that question, because that was one of the things that I was not aware of once I got into the profession of audit, which is how much you have to travel. But it's also, you know, for some people, they don't like a lot of travel. But if you are somebody who likes travel, who has aspirations to travel, you get to do that through the profession of audit, depending where you work, right? Especially if you work at one of those bigger organizations, they have clients all over the world, right? And in the country.
For sure.
It's one of the things that when I talk to people who have been through and lived it in the profession, is something that we really cherish, right? Is the opportunity to be able to go see places and experience new things, because it makes you more well-rounded as a professional and as a person. So I always like to ask that question just to get your people's perspective on what they've seen there. Okay. Well, look. Thank you so much for participating. I think that we learned a lot about the profession and what the CAQ is doing to help bring more awareness, bring more minorities into the profession. What you are doing, working with your team and the board of the CAQ to bring more awareness and bring more people in. And I think that people are going to get a lot out of this discussion with us. I think the main thing I wanted to get you on here to do is to showcase, you know, hey, there are organizations, there are people out here who are working to make sure we have the resources and that the opportunities are there to bring, you know, to help people get into the profession and have really successful careers, really fulfilling careers. And you have just contributed to making just a little bit more happen, but that's what we needed. We do just a little bit more every day, we'll get there, right?
I'm very excited for what's happening in the business community right now. And I do believe that there is a lot to look forward to. And I think there's been a real shift, I think, in awareness and how changes that need to be made. And so I'm feeling very optimistic about our future.
Absolutely. I'm going to, if you don't mind just holding on for me, I'm going to stop the recording for this.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Liz,
Thank you.
for participating. And maybe
Yep.
we can do this again in the future. Maybe we can have somebody else from the CAQ come on and talk. We can talk about all that afterwards. But thank you again.
Wonderful.
You. Appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.